Hey, what's up guys, it's Visceral Films, and today I'm finally doing a suit-up video on my screen-accurate Boba Fett suit. Let's get going.
Alright, so this entire suit is going to start off with this very crudely made fat suit. It's just built on top of a very simple cotton blouse that I think I got from my mom. And I just sewed the V-neck shut, cut the sleeves, and then I made all of this lovely pec and stomach. Also, there's some back pieces. This is all upholstery foam. And then these squares right here, especially, are going to come very important into play later when we get to the chest armor and the electronics inside and how those seat. But this pretty much just makes the entire suit sit in the correct way and match the silhouette of the real suit from episode 14 of The Mandalorian. So the next piece to go on is going to be this jetpack mount. This was just built out of a floor mat piece. It's pretty heavy duty, as you can see, and all these parts were just bent out of, I think this is aluminum. I'm pretty sure it's just aluminum, and then riveted and bolted into place. This just unclips simply like that. Turn back over here. There you go. Boom. All right, next up is going to be the jumpsuit. So here is the undersuit. This is the first real actual piece of the costume that's gonna go on. This was just, I believe just some black Liverpool that I got off of Amazon, and I sewed this entire suit myself. It's just a very simple black jumpsuit, just based on, I think, a pair of pajamas, and then it's got a zipper up the back. So I'm gonna put it on using magic, because pants. All right, very nice. So then, rest just goes over like so. Now, one of the only complicated parts of putting the entire suit on is that these prongs in the back have to go through holes in the back of each layer of the jumpsuit. Let's struggle with that now. Time-lapse time. Do it. Make sure that these holes are lining up with these holes. Relatively important. Alright, cool. All is looking good. Next piece is going to be the knee. So this knee piece is the first actual piece of armor that's going to go on. This was 3D printed, as some of the armor will be. Unlike my Mando build, I foam fabricated a lot of this armor, but this part is 3D printed. It was sanded with 80 grit, and then I went in and resculpted and filled in really bad printing lines with Bondo spot glazing putty. And then I filled in the rest with Rust-Oleum filler primer, and then sanded it from 120 all the way up to, I believe, 450. As you can see on the inside, there's some elastic and some Velcro, and that's going to attach to the knee. That corresponds with a piece of Velcro right here. And there you go. I will go into much more detail on the painting process of the armor throughout the video. Also important to mention and not to forget, this is the battery pack that's going to go to a piece on the armor. So this goes into the back pocket right there. And then this kind of just hangs out in the back for the time being. So next is going to be the boots. So I'm quite fond of these boots. These are probably the comfiest cosplay boots I've ever had. These are the Nortiv 8s. These are snow boots, and these are the screen-accurate shoes that were worn by the on-screen costume. As you can see, they were extremely weathered with just some tan acrylic to make them look like they're really muddy. And then there's a piece of Velcro here, and it just fits right on over the boot like so, as you can see. And then that piece of Velcro just fits right there. Whew, that's one. Here goes two. All right, boots are solid. Next up is the kilt, or the skirt, or I can't think of another word, so it's a kilt or a skirt. But this was also sewn out of the same black Liverpool as the rest. This was kind of a logistical nightmare at first, figuring out how to actually make this drape, because if you've seen the show, you know that when the knee comes up, a part of it has to move out of the way so that the barrels on the knee can actually shoot projectiles. So this just goes on pretty simply. And then it just kind of sits under the belly part of the suit right there. And then this flap and this flap move out of the way when the knee is raised for the knee armor, and then it's covered back up. One of my favorite things about this suit is that asymmetry actually with the knees. If you've noticed in the suits I've made, I love asymmetry. It's awesome. Gotta make sure the wire's still sticking out right there. All right, now it's going to get very hot, because next, I have to put my hair away. It's head sock time. You guys know the drill. Very nice. Distinguished. Here's how we're looking. All right, next up is going to be the vest. Also, just before I get into the vest, I just remembered that I have thumb holes on here to help with the gloves. It's been several years since I built this suit, so bear with me. All right, next up is going to be the vest. This is what's going to hold all of the iconic armor. As you can see, I already have the shoulder armor on there. Now, these shoulders were both made out of a high-density EVA cosplay foam, which really helped for maintaining like dents and whatnot like that. This dent was done by heat forming and really pushing this into the planishing stake that I have, whereas a dent like this was just done with a Dremel by carving it out by hand. This was stenciled out. There's a lot of stencil work on this suit because Boba Fett just has a lot of decals like this, but this was literally just cut out with an X-Acto knife and hand stippled on as one of my favorite parts of the build. The rest of this was just hand stitched out of, or hand sewn out of just a white, off-white canvas. It's got all these pleat designs in here. And then as you can see, tons and tons of Velcro that all the armor is gonna go on. This is extremely tight. I am no longer a high school kid who skips lunch. I have put on size since I built this suit, and now it's tight. I got it. Okay. Beautiful. Relax. Good stuff. All right, terrific. Now is going to be the individual pieces of armor. We're gonna start with this very small centerpiece here. This kind of acts like the locator because there's really only one spot that this can go. This was just foam fabricated and painted. Next is one of the breastplates. It has a foam box back here to add some depth, and that's going to match a foam housing that I had to build for the electronics section you'll see in a moment. My favorite part of this is this stenciled section right here, but the entire thing, of course, was fabricated out of foam, and this was painted, of course, just like the other one, with each layer individually liquid masked, painted, and then repeated. Good. First try. Here's the second piece of armor that goes on the other side. As you can see, it's got the wire sticking out that I'm going to feed up through the shirt. This has the animated sequence that is accurate to episode 14 of The Mandalorian. It was a specific pattern that the seller was selling, and I will link them down below. I'm so glad I helped feed wires through animatronics. That worked. Oh, good. Okay. All right, there we go. Hidden, sticking out like that. Now we can put the armor on. Sweet. And then I'm not going to turn on the sequence yet because I want you guys to be surprised at the end. Actually, scratch that. I'm going to turn this on now because I'm going to forget. Boom. And now it's going. Next is going to be the belly armor. Same dealio. There we go. I like that. Alrighty. Here's how we're looking. Next. Alright. next is going to be the collar. These little pin ends were 3D printed. Everything else was foam fabricated. Alright. That's not great, but that'll do. Alright, next is going to be the back armor. This is where I'm going to waste 5 minutes of my camera storage time trying to get this on. This was made out of foam and painted in the same way. It's got some Velcro tabs up here, and then these slots are going to have to fit through these pieces in the back. So let's time lapse this so that you can watch me struggle.
God, how the hell did I used to do this?
Okay, I'm actually going to stop all the cameras and then just cut. And we're back. And there we go. Now the back piece is on. Forever linked to the position of the jetpack mount. Alright, next up is going to be the big beefy deadlifting belt. This was made in 2 stages. I'll start with the leather belt. This was made from literally just leather that I got from Hobby Lobby, and then I sewed and weathered into the shapes you see here, especially for this blaster holster, which was a blast. I remember this leather was really thick, and I had to hand crank the wheel on the sewing machine. And then these are all leather rivets. This goes around the leg, and then that pops off like that. Additionally, all of these canister pieces were, one of them was 3D printed, and then I just made a mold and casted all of these with excess resin from, actually no, it wasn't any excess resin. I think I had to make like 2 or 3 molds. Finally, there's some Velcro on the inside. Behind this is a rope layer. Now, I could not find any rope that matched the pattern, so I just bought black kind of earth tan and brown twine, or this isn't twine, this is nylon, and then I just braided it myself. It was super fun, and then just hot glued it to this piece of canvas, and then it goes on the body like so. All right, there we go. Then get the holster around the leg. And there you go. And this obviously is why this belly piece was so important, so that I could get this shape, because I don't have this shape yet in my life. All right, next up is going to be the blaster. This was probably one of my favorite parts of the entire build. Unlike the Mandalorian one that was 3D printed, this was completely hand fabricated. This back section was pink foam, and so was this part as well that I carved and sculpted. So was this. This was just some really thin wood, and then all of this in the gunmetal kind of dry brush silver area is EVA foam. And then up here at the front is just some plastic pieces, and I think that about covers it. Good, good, good. All right, next up is going to be the first gauntlet. This was 3D printed. I got these files and all the files from do3d.com. The files I used for this suit were the original, I think, Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett files, instead of, they hadn't made the episode 14 of the Mandalorian Boba Fett files yet. So these were 3D printed. This was printed in 3 parts. Let me see. You should be able to see the weld, the plastic weld on the inside there. And then this rocket was printed separately. And this was painted in the same way. You can really see this spray glue texture now that I did on it, where I painted in the liquid latex and then sprayed the spray glue over it. And this just goes on like so. Boom. There we go. Just kidding, I need to put the jetpack on now.
What am I doing?
So next actually is the jetpack. This took the longest, but this is also like the most fun I had on the entire build. This was made out of EVA foam, among many other things. I will point out these parts right here, these parts, and I believe it's just these. Yeah, those were 3D printed. Everything else was fabricated. This started off on some poster board. These extend pretty far into the jetpack to give it some structure. They're made of aluminum. This entire rocket was just foam, and the entire thing was printed using the same process as the rest of the suit. Oh, and I had to mention this. This band right here is from where the jetpack got slashed in Empire Strikes Back and broke, and then he riveted that new piece on. And those rivets are just pins, like sewing pins. If you thought I had trouble getting the back piece on, you're gonna love this.
Oh, did I get it? I didn't get it.
There we go. That definitely went as quick as it just showed, but that is my absolute favorite part. I mean, just the way it wiggles, the gap between the back and the jetpack, that kind of makes it look like it's just floating there in negative space. The way it sits on my back, this is the best part. The way the silhouette, all of it. I can't be happier with how this jetpack came out. Next up is actually the gauntlet now. Now here is the other gauntlet. This is the flamethrower gauntlet. You can tell by all of these PEX tubes. I don't know if these are PEX tubes, but they're definitely tubes. And they are rubberized because I was able to melt them down over these pipe fittings. There it is, little nozzle piece right here where the fire would spray out. And then this whole thing, again, same painting technique. This is the most fun. This is my favorite paint job I've ever done on this build. Like, seriously. I had such a blast doing all of this weathering and these, like, just making it look like it's been sitting in stomach acid for thousands of years, which it turned out not to be. It was like a couple hours Boba Fett was in there, but it was fun. It was cool to, like, hope. Not thousands, don't cook me. Oh! Alright, so that goes on like that. And then these tubes and this Velcro correspond to some Velcro behind the vest. We'll do a quick turnaround. Here's how we're looking. Next is going to be the neck scarf or the neck scruff. This was just a couple layers of the same fabric the rest of the suit was made of. Alright, next up is going to be the gloves. I'll start with the hand plate. This was cast from the exact same mold as the Mandalorian hand plate. Same one, same 3D printed part. And then the hands were just brown leather gloves with black fingerless leather gloves put over top. Alright, those are on. Now finally, for the helmet. This is maybe my favorite helmet I've ever made. This was 3D printed in cartoon Boba Fett green, and then body worked up to a 400 grit, painted silver, and then I drew everywhere that I wanted to remain silver, smooth silver, masked that off with liquid latex, painted the whole thing with spray glue, which gave it this really rough texture, remasked off all the parts I wanted to keep smooth, painted it green, remasked off all the part, and then did that with the red and the black and the every color that you see on here. The kill stripes are on here somewhere, right there. This rangefinder was also printed. It used to move up and down. I have since glued it in place because the mechanism I built out of a bent nail was not great. Lastly, and I failed to mention this in my Mandalorian video, this is a welding visor on the inside here, so it has a greenish tint. But finally, that'll complete the look. very much for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end of this video. Make sure to drop a like if you appreciated it, and if you have any questions in the comments, I will sure to be answered back as quickly as possible, because I'm sure there's things I missed on the process of this build. So thank you very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see some more, and I swear the Batsuit is still in progress. The belt is almost done.